Steven Spielberg, the man who gave the world Jurassic Park, E.T., and Saving Private Ryan. To most people, he's Hollywood's kind-hearted genius, a director who treats his actors like family. But here's the truth nobody talks about. Spielberg has a rule: break his trust, and you won't just lose the role, you'll disappear. No headlines, no public feud, just a phone that stops ringing. Forever. And it doesn't matter if you're the hottest star in Hollywood. It doesn't matter if you carried his blockbuster to box office glory. If you cross that invisible line, Spielberg will erase you like you were never there. That's exactly what happened to Megan Fox. In 2009, she was at the top. She was Transformers, the face, the fire, the reason audiences kept coming back. Then, in just one interview, she detonated her own career. While venting about her director, Michael Bay, she compared him to Hitler on set. Most people thought it was just another celebrity rant until they learned who was quietly listening. Spielberg wasn't just a fan of Transformers. He was the executive producer, and Spielberg doesn't play when it comes to that kind of comment. Michael Bay later revealed that Spielberg called him directly with a short, brutal order: fire her! Not talk to her, not take a break. Just gone. Fox was pulled from the third film without a single line of explanation. Her character was never mentioned again, as if she'd never existed in that universe at all. Megan tried to soften the story later, claiming her words had been twisted, but the damage was done. Spielberg didn't say a word publicly. He didn't have to. The silence was louder than any scandal. And this was the moment the industry learned. Even the nicest man in Hollywood has a cold, calculated side when it comes to protecting his vision. When Spielberg cast Shia LaBeouf in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it wasn't just another paycheck. It was a passing of the torch. Shia was fresh off the Transformers wave, the golden boy of Hollywood, and Spielberg was positioning him to be the next big leading man. He got the screen time, the press, the hype. The future was his. But then, he blew it. Right after the film hit theaters, Shia did what no actor under Spielberg had ever done before. He trashed the movie. He told interviewers he wasn't happy with his own performance. Fine. But then he went further and blamed the film's problems on Spielberg himself. He hinted the director had gone too safe, too formulaic. That's the kind of thing you do not say about a man who practically shaped modern cinema. Spielberg didn't lash out publicly, but behind the scenes, the relationship was dead. According to multiple insiders, Spielberg felt personally betrayed. Not just by the criticism, but because Shia had praised the film during production, then flipped the moment the press tour began. And he didn't stop. In later interviews, Shia doubled down, calling Spielberg's process overly mechanical, and even implying working with him was less than inspiring. Needless to say, the phone stopped ringing. No more Indiana Jones. No cameos, no voice work, nothing. Shia went from heir apparent to persona non grata. Years later, he admitted he'd messed up the relationship. But by then, it was too late. Spielberg had already moved on, and Shia was drifting into indie exile. Before Christian Bale was Batman, before the Oscars, before the fame, he was a 13-year-old kid handed the lead role in one of Spielberg's most ambitious films, Empire of the Sun. This wasn't E.T. This wasn't Close Encounters. This was a harrowing war epic, 2.5 hours long, with a child carrying nearly every scene. And from day one, Bale came in locked in. He didn't just learn his lines, he memorized the entire script, not just his dialogue, everybody's. He gave feedback on other actors' deliveries. He questioned Spielberg's camera angles. He even asked for retakes when he felt the emotion wasn't hitting hard enough. Some saw a prodigy. Spielberg saw something else. Chaos creeping into his system. Spielberg runs his sets like a military operation. Every camera move, every light cue, every extra in place. Having a 13-year-old trying to steer scenes wasn't part of the plan. Yes, he respected Bale's discipline. Yes, the performance was brilliant. Critics called it powerful, raw, beyond his years. But for Spielberg, the working relationship was quietly strained, and when filming wrapped, there was no feud, no fight, no harsh words, just silence. Bale's career skyrocketed. But Spielberg never called again, because once you challenge the king of the set, you don't get a second chance. When Spielberg cast Sean Connery in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, it was a dream pairing, James Bond himself, playing Indiana Jones's father. This wasn't just casting. This was cinema history. Spielberg was ecstatic. Connery was Hollywood royalty. But the reality on set was anything but smooth. From day one, Connery made it clear. He wasn't here to play a sidekick. He wanted creative control. He wanted rewrites. He wanted a say in the wardrobe. And he didn't just read his lines. He dissected them. He restructured them. Sometimes, he flat out refused them. His reasoning? He believed his character needed more dignity, more weight. But Spielberg had a very clear vision for the father-son dynamic. And he wasn't handing over the reins. The tension wasn't explosive, but it was constant. Connery pushed for alternate takes, requested script changes minutes before rolling. It was a low-level power struggle that never stopped. And to make it trickier, Connery's massive star power meant the studio often sided with him, which only deepened the friction. The film was a box office smash. Audiences loved him in the role. But behind the scenes, Spielberg had already decided there would be no more Connery collaborations. When future Indiana Jones projects came up, Connery's name was never on the table. Not even for a cameo. In interviews, Spielberg stayed diplomatic, praising Connery's talent, but never hinting at working together again, because sometimes even legends can't share the spotlight. On paper, Hook was perfect. Steven Spielberg directing a grown-up Peter Pan story, Robin Williams as Pan, Dustin Hoffman as Hook, and Julia Roberts, fresh off Pretty Woman, as Tinkerbell. It should have been magic. Instead, it was chaos. When Roberts arrived on set, she wasn't just stepping into a fantasy world. She was stepping straight out of a personal disaster. Her engagement to Kiefer Sutherland had collapsed days before filming. She was heartbroken, exhausted, and according to crew members, that pain turned into distance. They started calling her Tinkerhell. She was late. She isolated herself in her trailer. She clashed with co-stars. And worst of all, for a director like Spielberg, she ignored direction. At first, Spielberg tried to accommodate her. He gave her space, gave her time. But the delays kept piling up. The set's energy froze. Spielberg, the man known for patience and collaboration, reached his breaking point. Years later, in a rare moment of blunt honesty, he admitted, if he had to do it again, he wouldn't cast her. That's not just criticism. From Spielberg, that's a closing of the door. After Hook, Roberts' career soared. But Spielberg never called. No cameos, no collaborations, nothing. Even when they crossed paths at events, the warmth was gone. Because in Spielberg's world, once the trust is broken, the fairy tale is over. If Spielberg had a muse in the 1970s, it was Richard Dreyfuss. They didn't just work well together, they made history. Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, two of the most defining films of a generation. And at the center, the Spielberg-Dreyfuss magic. Spielberg once called him the perfect mix of charm, insecurity, and unpredictability. Exactly what he wanted on screen. And then, it was gone. After their 1989 film, Always, Spielberg never cast him again. Not in a single role, not a cameo, nothing. There was no public feud, no scandal, just silence. The truth is, the tension had been building for years. On Jaws, Dreyfuss constantly second-guessed Spielberg's direction and clashed openly with co-star Robert Shaw. On Close Encounters, he pushed for rewrites on scenes Spielberg had already locked. At the time, Spielberg shrugged it off. He was young, still finding his place. But as his power grew, his patience for friction shrank. And with Dreyfuss, the little cuts added up. Until one day, the calls simply stopped. Dreyfuss has spoken warmly about Spielberg in interviews since. The kind of warmth that feels nostalgic, not active. Meanwhile, Spielberg barely mentions him at all. In Hollywood, some endings don't come with explosions. They come with erasure. Steven Spielberg has built worlds, shaped careers, and turned actors into legends. But his kindness has borders. For the chosen few, Tom Hanks, Harrison Ford, Leonardo DiCaprio, that bond lasts decades. Because they know the unspoken rules: show up, respect the vision, deliver everything. For everyone else, there is no safety net. One wrong move, one betrayal, one clash too many, And Spielberg won't fight you, won't shame you. He will simply make you disappear. No public drama, no second chance, just the end of the story. And in an industry built on noise and headlines, his silence is deafening. That's why so many actors would kill for a second shot with him, because a Spielberg film doesn't just make you famous, it makes you timeless. But for Megan Fox, Shia LaBeouf, Christian Bale, Sean Connery, Julia Roberts, and Richard Dreyfuss, there will be no next time, no reunion, no redemption. In Spielberg's world, you get one shot, no retakes.